Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at setting up and working with our Rally anti-lag once again. In this training module, we're going to be focusing how we can integrate an anti-lag valve into our anti-lag strategy. This is the superior way to control anti-lag because it's a lot less stressful on our engine. We'll find with the normal anti-lag feature, we can really put a lot of stress on our exhaust valves and our cooling system. This will mitigate some of that effect and allow us to have the same performance, if not better performance, but it'll be a lot easier on our components. So let's jump in here and take a look at what we need to do in order to set up our Rally anti-lag. We're going to talk about our general control strategy here in the beginning of the training module. We're going to talk about how we're integrating our anti-lag valve into our strategy. We also have to set up a boost control solenoid that's going to be controlling the anti-lag valve. There is going to be a little bit more detail and complexity to this configuration and setup compared to our last training module. But again, this is definitely a superior way to dial in and work with anti-lag control. Let's jump in and take a look at where we can find and turning on our anti-lag programming. We're going to move from our fuel tuning window here and go down here under Motorsports. Now under the Motorsports, we're going to jump across here into our third window labeled anti-lag. Here's where we can turn on the anti-lag feature as well as set up our boost control solenoid to control our anti-lag valve that we're going to be introducing and integrating here to our control strategy. Now the first things first, I'm going to jump into anti-lag here. We can see the mode is currently turned off. We can see it's not in use. What we want to do here is turn it to the enabled status, and now we can find we have all of our programming tables here that we can work with in order to activate and to bring in the anti-lag feature. Let me go ahead and save and store the change to the Motec so it now knows we want to use this anti-lag mode. Now, the first thing we want to talk about here is the overall strategy with anti-lag. So anti-lag is going to be used in a turbocharged engine when we're in overrun or lift throttle conditions. We want to have the boost still generating and building so when we come back on the throttle, we don't have to wait for the boost to come back up and start to build again. This essentially gives us a really broad, almost instantaneous power band, making our car much faster around a road course or a rally stage. So what we find in this control strategy and how we're working with this and the general anti-lag strategy is going to be we need to have our exhaust mass flow increased in our overrun condition. Now in overrun, we generally will lift our throttle, so we'll find throttle angle closes, the amount of air mass coming into the engine starts to reduce a lot, and then our exhaust mass flow is going to reduce a lot as well. So exhaust mass flow is proportional to the air mass coming into the engine, but also what happens within our combustion process. We'll find that we can control our exhaust mass flow and being able to drive the turbocharger faster or slower based on utilizing the anti-lag feature. Now in the anti-lag, we generally want to have an increase in air mass coming into our engine. So we generally want to go ahead and keep our throttle plate open in overrun. Now, the demonstration I'm going to be showing in this training module and how we're going to be approaching this is using drive-by-wire control. This is a superior way to set up and work with anti-lag in general. So when we're in a drive-by-wire situation, we have our accel pedal that's in the car. We have our throttle plate. We know they're independently controlled. It's virtually controlling that throttle plate. We do have that pedal plate relationship, but we have the ability to override the pedal plate relationship. Normally, we're on the throttle and the plate opens a certain amount. In the anti-lag feature, we can lift throttle and have our throttle angle being fixed and having a certain amount of air mass coming into the engine. So if we have an increase of air mass in an overrun condition, therefore our exhaust air mass will increase and that'll spin the turbine wheel faster, keeping us up on boost. We'll find that we also, in conjunction with having additional air mass coming into the engine, we need to have late combustion, which increases our exhaust pressure and temperature. So we generally want to retard our ignition timing. And then we also want to introduce a fuel or ignition cut. What this is going to do, if we're cutting it in a randomized sequence, it's going to have a lot of unburnt fuel coming out into the exhaust manifold. And with late combustion, we'll find that we can actually have the combustion happening within the exhaust manifold before the turbo. And we need to be very, very careful with anti-lag in general because it's very easy to literally melt the turbine wheel or completely warp your exhaust valves or overheat the exhaust manifold so badly that it cracks. It is that violent and aggressive. So the general approach that we talked about in our last training module when we're working with anti-lag control is that we want to go ahead and use more of a fuel cut to control our EGTs. We don't want the EGTs, the exhaust gas temperature, to get too crazy that we get to the situation where the turbine wheel melts on the turbocharger, or we crack the exhaust manifold, or we warp our exhaust valves in our cylinder head, or tax and cause the engine to tax the cooling system and cause the engine to overheat. So it's very, very important that we watch our exhaust temperature. The way we control this is by going in and using a fuel cut rather than relying on a heavy ignition cut. The ignition cut will get a lot of popping and banging and having a lot of that late combustion effect and really getting the exhaust pressure driven up very, very high, but again, at the expense of extreme exhaust temperatures. So the fuel cut is a better way to handle things. And that was the approach that we took in that last training module. We're gonna be continuing some of that here in this training module. But what we'll find is the difference that we have between working in general rally anti-lag control and now introducing our anti-lag valve is that we can actually introduce a lot of exhaust mass flow without having to create that late combustion effect. So we don't need to necessarily rely on.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.